Hi, this is Heather, the teen librarian at Sunderland Public Library, and Trish is here. She's gonna help us make our very own cool nature journals for the nature walks coming up on Friday nights.
Okay, yeah.
Take it away.
Thank you. So I'm Trish Crapo. I live up in Leiden, but I've come to the Sunderland Library before and done some book binding classes. So I'm really happy to be here again. What I was going to teach you how to make today is a small back pocket journal. You can see this one I covered with a little bit of a topo map. And I really like to use paper bags. So I used lunch bags, which you can buy. You can buy packages of these at the dollar store.
They'll be in the kits as well.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, they're going to pick up kits at the library, so they'll be included.
Okay, great. And the other things you're going to find in your kit is some kind of thread, a big needle, like a darning needle, glue. Trying to remember if there's anything else. You really don't need a lot for this.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. Yeah.
Some kind of paper for a cover will be.
Yes, there'll be that too.
All right, so I'm going to turn this down and we'll just get started and make one. Heather, are you going to make one as we go along?
I actually left all this stuff at the library. I should have brought a little sample of the material so I could make it along with you.
Well, that's all right then. So we'll just we can watch my doing it.
Yes.
And so I'm going to tip this down now and I'm going to show you the first steps are. Is that good? You can
That's see great. That? I can see everything.
Okay, so you open up the paper bag and you start cutting. I'm going to cut along this crease that looks like really dominant to me. It looks easy to follow. And then you go this way. Some people have asked me sometimes, why don't you just use like a roll of brown paper? But I'm actually really attracted to all the folds and the little weird serrated edge along the top. I just like all that. All right, so now we're going to fold this in half. And here's that edge I was talking about that I like. And I even like this little divot. So I folded it in half one way. Oh, and I remember the other thing, I'm going to use what's called a bone folder, but you can also just use a plain butter knife, not serrated, not sharp. I might even just see really quickly if I have one of those in my kit to show you that you don't need a special tool for this. Yeah, here we go. So here's just an old-fashioned, this one happens to be silver. It doesn't have to be butter knife. And I can do the same thing. I can just, what I want to do is I want to make this fold really, really sharp. So I'm just going to go along like that.
Then I'm definitely going to make one of these.
Pardon?
I'm definitely going to make one of these. It looks fun.
It's really fun. Then you fold it in half again. And here's that same, I want to make this fold really sharp. And then what I need to do, though, of course, nobody needs to see this again in order to learn how to do it, but I need to do it one more time because I wanted the book to be a little bit fatter than just one grouping of pages. And in bookbinding, you call that grouping of pages a signature. So actually, once I sew it together, that's when it's called a signature. And this signature is going to have multiple pages.
And Trish, if somebody wanted to do more, they could add in like another paper bag or.
You certainly could. Yeah. I mean, I think I was partly thinking for watching purposes. Right, that we would just start with 2, but you can make them thicker. And in fact, let me do this. I'm going to show you something since you asked that question. I showed the original one. So this is the one that just has 2 paper bags. Earlier, I made one that you can tell has a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that happens, part of the reason this book is smaller than the other, when you start to fold these together, so I have these 2 stacks, I'm going to fold them in half together. I haven't separated any of the folds yet, but sometimes what starts to happen is pages will stick more and more out of that central fold.
Mm-hmm.
And a way to handle that, I mean, you can leave it, obviously, you can just let that be. But another thing, you could take the book, like say, you would open it up and you could take a ruler, right? I mean, this one's already trimmed, and an X-Acto knife. Mine happens to look like a fish, which I love. and you could trim it, being sure you had the right kind of board.
Yeah, don't do that on your mom's table.
Yeah, exactly. Or the library table or anything. Or I was going to say too, you could take it, I believe the library has a paper cutter. Does
Yeah,
it?
the kids will be doing it at home, but yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, like, say they made it and they wanted to trim it
Oh,
later.
sure.
I don't know that they'd be able to bring it to the library and maybe even get some help
Yeah.
to trim it up. But the other thing is, I think it's important not to be too afraid of imperfection, right? Like let the thing be rough. Okay, so now we have these 2 stacks. I'm just gonna eyeball
right back.
this. Okay. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
I'm gonna take a pencil and I'm gonna find roughly the middle. Like I'm not being too exact about it. And then I'm gonna make another point about the depth of my fingernail here. And also here. I'll just use my finger to do it. Now, if you really get into book binding, there's a tool you can buy that's called an awl, right? That I have here that you could poke these with. But another advantage of not making this book too thick, part of why I did that, is that I'd be able to do it with this needle. So I'm gonna like put it down flat, stick this needle through, and do all 3 of them. It's easier to get started with your threading if you've already got the holes poked through. Now I'm going to take some thread. This is a thin twine. You could use embroidery thread. I'm going to measure 3 times the length of this inside of my book. And it seems like, it'll seem to you like that's too much thread, but it's not. So now I'm going to thread this guy. And I'm going to come in from the middle. You can still see this.
Yep.
And as it comes close to coming all the way through, I'm going to hold this down with my thumb. And I'm going to, well, let's see. I'll flip it over like this. I'm not going to hold it down with my thumb. Sometimes, like, so this just shifted on me a little bit. Sometimes you need to take your needle and push that through again to like open the hole up so you can come in. So we're coming in from the top. We're pulling it through. And now we're going to come in from this one. It's depending on the thickness of your thread. And then I'm going to come back through this point here. You want to try not to puncture the other piece of thread, but sometimes you do. I don't think I did here. And then I'm going to just pull it pretty tight and tie it across and tie it across again twice.
Wow, that was simple.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
it's pretty simple. And then you trim it. You know, I like them kind of long. Some people like to trim it so it's hardly there at all, like just really short. And so now you have the book, but these pages are all closed, right? So you can just take scissors. And again, it's going to be a little uneven, of course, because you're not measuring and using a ruler and a knife, but let's see. So what else? So now I have the bottom. I think the bottom, what's easy to do on the bottom is to make this really sharp again, this bottom fold, and then take this knife and slide it in. We'll see how that, actually, it's funny, the paper's really moist today. It doesn't want to do that.
Mhm.
But just know, I mean, I think it's good to know that you can do it that way. But I think it's too humid. So again, I'm just going to take the scissors, cut it like this. And the reason I do this and cut it later rather than before I sew it is that sewing it holds it in place for you, right? So,
Clever.
all right. And Heather, you were asking about making them thicker.
Yeah, could you just do another signature and then
Yeah,
kind of stick them both in there, and you'd avoid that problem of the paper's sticking out at the ends too much?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be another way. You could make another one of these. And that's what I did with this book. Like, I think you can kind of see on the spine that it's thicker.
Mm.
I made 3 of them, it looks like, and stacked them up. And then you take just a piece of like white office paper and cut a little strip, wrap it around and glue them to that strip to hold it
Mhm.
all together. And then you put this on. I mean, we could do that in person sometime. We could have a workshop
yeah.
where we,
That
where
would
we
be
have
fun.
lots of time. All right, so now I have this. This one I did with a map before. So I had this leftover wrapping paper. It's kind of a like obsession that I have, that I save paper and find a relatively unwrinkled place. Although, it could be interesting to incorporate some of this, like where the folds are and stuff. But let's see. This paper is really nice because it has lines that help me cut it straight. Because again, I was trying to figure out a way that nobody had to have an X-Acto knife or
Right.
something more complicated. Do you know what kinds of papers are going to be in the kit for that?
I don't. There'll probably be maps, and we also have some decorative paper at the library, like possibly like scrapbooking paper and that sort of thing. It's a little bit, it's not the flimsy, cheap wrapping paper or anything like that. Something that'll hold
Right.
up.
So I think that I'm going to now just like cut it along like this kind of quickly so that I can see where the final shape goes. If you want, you can, with a book like this, you don't really want the cover to be a lot bigger because it'll sort of crinkle, right? So you want it to be pretty much the same size. I even sort of like it sometimes when that top of the bag peaks. Yeah, so, all right. So now we're going to cut it this way. And I suppose like if people are watching this later, you can always stop it, catch up with me, right? And then turn it back on, which is kind of nice. So I'm actually going to glue this in and then trim it, I think, because that way, whatever depth this takes up, I'll have that accounted for, and then I'll trim this. So one thing I need to get from over here, I use old magazines to glue on because you really want to go off the edges of this. So I'm just going to take this. I'm only going to do one side at a time, and I want to do a lot of glue. I wanted to make this little pitch for this glue I recently discovered too, which is that Elmer's is doing natural glues.
Oh,
right? How cool is
nice.
that? Like I used to buy these, the purple ones, which are great, but school glue naturals, right? That's pretty
Nice.
cool. All right, so we're gonna do that. Now you have to make sure, of course, that you do the next step not on the page, you just put all that glue over. And I'm going to set it in the center. I'm gonna try to put the top right up there, and then I only have like 3 edges to trim instead of 4. So then I'm gonna bring this down. Sort of, it's harder to see since the inside of my paper is the same
No, I
color
can
as
see
the
it.
paper bag. But can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then take your, actually, I want to use the butter knife. Take the butter knife and just really smooth this thing down. All right. And now I think I'll just eyeball this and cut this part off. It's really easy to see right here. Okay. Now we do it again over here. I'm just going to turn the page of this magazine. Just the beauty of using it. So I want to like fold this back so I don't get any glue on it yet, right? And I'm just going to get glue on here. All right.
Mm.
You really do want a lot because you don't want little places. If there's no glue and some part of it doesn't stick well,
Mhm.
you start to like sort of buckle and peel up later. All right, so now come over here. Oh, I put
Oh dear.
on the wrong side.
Oops.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna let, okay, so it's not perfect, right? So I'm just
Right.
gonna glue that to that.
Whoops. So easy
You make
to
that
do.
mistake, you just do that. So right, so the thing is, you have to turn the whole thing over and do it this way. So I'll have one less page in my book, one less page to write my nature observations on.
Mhm.
I suppose the other thing though is that it's a little sturdier.
That's true. Your cover will be a firmer surface to write against.
You know, it's funny because I am like always these days trying to fight this urge in myself to be a perfectionist. And
There you go.
so that was kind of perfect. So, and you don't worry about having glue on here or not, right? Don't worry about that because this paper will just wrap around there. And now here's what we want to do. Let's get this out of the way, the gluey part. And rub this down with the butter knife.
Mm.
Okay. It is kind of like buttering because of the glue, it's the way it spreads. And now I can trim this. And now I could trim, I'm just going to trim this whole thing along the bottom. And we'll see how, so you can see a little bit of what I'm talking about these pages sticking out,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So, but I'm going to try something that might, I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm just going to try like, I'm going to push the pages in sort of, and then pretty forcefully pull this to try to stretch the cover. And that might solve it. Yeah, pretty good.
Mm.
I mean, you could also, again, that perfectionist thing, like I think I'd be tempted to just take a ruler. If you're using an X-Acto knife, always be really sure where your fingers are, right? And you can just trim it. It's going through a couple layers at a time, so, all right. And so it's a little rough, but I was gonna say one of the things I like about these is there's a poet, Mary Oliver. I don't know if you guys will, I mean, she's a wonderful nature poet, and she used to make these little back pocket journals. I never saw any, but she has an essay about it, that were just stitched together, and she made obviously many of them because what I like is you can go out, you can fill this thing, and when you're done, you make another one, right?
Yeah.
And then you can keep I had some that I put magazine images for the cover, which was interesting, but I have to say the ink sort of wore away in my back pocket,
Right.
right? So you need to choose your paper based on durability as much as what it looks like. So there's that. Do you have any questions
Great.
about it? Or
No, it looks like a fun project, and I like how, I mean, it's made out of paper bags. It's kind of got a little bit of imperfection worked in there just from the frilly, the serrated edge of the bag and the different textures and folds that it's got. So it's not as intimidating as when you buy a really fancy blank book. You don't want to write on the page. You're like, oh, I have to have something worthy to write. It's like, no, this is your nature journal. You made it out of a bunch of stuff, and now you can write what birds you saw at the bird feeder. You can sketch, some animals or birds or plants that you see, a flower you don't want to forget. You want to look up the name of it later. You can sketch it in there. Maybe some notes about colors and things. And
I think one of the things that I do sometimes, instead of writing this direction, which is really common,
Mhm.
I hold it this way because I find I can just support this with my hand a little bit,
Mhm.
right? So anyway, I tend to write in them horizontal instead of vertical. But obviously people can do what they like. And if you get to sketching, you have some areas where you'd have a spread, you could, draw
Yeah.
across. So
Yeah, that's very cool. I was thinking too, it's like this design that you've come up with is really easy to adapt. You could like maybe find a small envelope and glue it to a page so that you could access the envelope, or have one bit where you have folded over a bit more paper bag so there's a little pocket or something so you can stick some things you find in there, like
right.
you know what I mean, like for feathers or
one thing you could experiment with before you cut all those parts, like some of them you'll find are definitely held in on 3 sides.
oh cool,
Right?
yeah, that
So
could be
some
a
of them,
built-in
that's
pocket.
something to think about. Yeah, like you could go through and you could leave a few of those.
Yeah.
That is such a great alteration. And then you'd be able to put, like I was looking around, what do I have on my work table? Mostly I have like big rocks and things, but
Yeah.
if you had something, like here, this is a oyster shell, right? Like if this
Right.
were, you had not cut that open.
You could even slip a pen in there for like, so it's not loose in your pocket or something.
Right. Very cool. So what are you doing for the walks?
Well, we're gonna meet at the library. I believe it's gonna be at 4 o'clock on Fridays, starting next week. And we'll be just weather permitting, just going out and walking around near the library. We have some athletic fields, and there's a little bit, there's a walk down by the river, and we can go and we can sit and sketch. I might prepare some very short readings that I can do out loud of like Tristan Gooley or one of these, or more, that guy's more about finding your way and learning things about being outdoors, like how to navigate via weather and things. It's really interesting. But there's other writers that are more nature oriented, more talking about what we can do, what they've observed, or just to give the kids some inspiration.
Right. That sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. I have this other, I didn't know if you wanted to see this other little model of a book that's easy to make.
Yeah, I would love to.
So this is, I actually took a workshop myself and I learned how to make this little, they call it an instant book. This book is made from one piece of paper,
Oh, yes, I've done that.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
very cool.
And so I think that would be another thing that you could have in your back pocket. Is sometimes it's hard to figure out how to fold it, but the other thing you can do, which I did for this one, is you can lay it on a copier and copy it so that you could effectively make little zines or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna be sending home a take-home kit of zine making later in the summer, so that is
So
great.
let me find a piece of paper and see if I can.
I'll be right back.
Okay, should we just pause for a minute?
Sorry, I had something in the oven.
Oh, that's okay. Well, yeah, and I wanted, like, here's another little, this is called Mini Guide to the Zine Collections of the Pioneer Valley.
Wow.
So the women who led the workshop that I took put this together. Again, it's just one piece of paper. And there, I should probably Xerox this and send it to you,
That would be great.
Heather, because you could have it at the library. So there's a Flywheel zine library in East Hampton. Hampshire College has a zine collection. So if you get to doing, there's a girls zine collection at Smith College, right? So if you get to doing a zine project, this would be really fun, a way. And the other thing, like when you open this up, the one that I made is just blank inside. They made a map inside that shows
Oh,
where those
that's
zines are,
clever.
right? So I'm definitely going to Xerox this for you and send it to you.
That'd be wonderful.
And again, it's funny how, so I'm actually going to follow along. So this is a book called How to Make Books. I don't know if your library has this. Is a great resource.
No,
Yes.
but we do, but I will look.
That's what Smith. This is really simple. Like, so here's the directions. And it's funny because there's like a piece of it that's a little mind boggling when you get to do the cutting. So I'm going to follow those directions. So I'm going to put this back down. So I'm using red paper. So you start by folding it in half. And I'm gonna again find my little butter knife and sharpen that. And I'm gonna open it and fold it in half the other way. And I suppose like zines don't have to be made this way, like, right? Anything, it can be a different size, right?
Yep. There's infinite variety.
Now we're going to take this and fold it one more time. So what we've done essentially is create how many do we have? We have 8 squares. All right, so we leave it folded. No, we open it up like this. We open it up like
Yeah, it's
this.
very tricky. You have to think about it.
And we cut into here.
And that's the folded edge that you're cutting from in the middle of
Yeah,
the piece of
from
paper.
the folded edge. And then, so that's really the only cut. And then the tricky thing is just getting it all to lay back in. So there we go.
The camera's not really seeing. Okay.
Let me see. Let me try lifting it up a little
There
bit.
we go.
So I made the fold, right? I had it. Now that I've unfolded it, let's see. Here. I had it like this.
Yep.
You're right. This is the open edge. Maybe red is a difficult paper to see.
No, we can see it. The camera just wasn't aimed at it very well.
Yeah. And then I made this one cut.
Yep.
And then what I do is I pull this thing open.
Yep.
And it's a bit of a you want it to come into the middle, and then you basically see like the star shape. You want to create 4 pages that fold around like that. So that's what, I mean, this would be a really small thing. Maybe each time you went out, you could make one of these and you could even open it up and do a sketch inside or something, right?
Yeah,
I just love the simplicity of like how quickly that's done, one little cut.
there isn't even glue. It's crazy.
I know, no
Wonderful.
glue, nothing. And
Yeah.
yeah, so those are the tricks I have up my sleeve for today.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Trish. This is
Yeah,
really
thank
great. Wow. I hope that we'll have lots of kits picked up at the library. Just call us at 665-2642. And I'll have kits assembled starting next week because we were waiting for some stuff to come in. But yeah,
Okay.
exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. Oh.